Hi everyone. I scheduled a stream but it didn't work out. I don't know why. Anyway, welcome. We are on the second last day of finishing Percy Jackson, and this is very exciting. I am really extremely excited about this. Also, it is very exciting. Anyway, so let's read Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief in chapter 19 and chapter 20 because it's that time of the year. I am. This is everything that I've. I. Let's be completely honest. This would be the first activity on YouTube that I've actually completed. I started this YouTube channel so that I could share that people can be mentally healthy and everything. But then I got so bored, I left it. Then I thought, oh, I'll make a vlog, like daily vlogs or something. I didn't do that either. But this time I am scoring well with this book. Thank you, Percy Jackson, for standing with me through and through, like I'm going to stand with you. Anyway, let's get started. This is if you see If you see this, yes, these are my new glasses. Not new. They are like a year old, I think. No. I got them this year, but they are not exactly new. But I thought let's pop them out today. Let's get started. Let's get reading. Chapter 19. We find out the truth, sort of. Imagine the largest concert crowd you've ever seen, a football field packed with million fans. Oh, I don't have to imagine. Era's tour definitely showed me that. I wasn't there. The live streams, the fans and the live streams, that helped me. Honestly, thank you. I would like to take this opportunity to thank all the fans of Era's tour who came live and saved people like me from the agony of not knowing how the experience of the stadium would be. Thank you so much for doing that. I am really honored to be part of such a great fandom. Now imagine a field of million times that big, packed with people, and imagine the electricity has gone out, and there is no noise, no light, no beach ball bouncing around over the crowd. Something tragic has happened backstage. Whispering masses of people are just milling around in the shadows, waiting for a concert that will never start. If you can picture that, you have a pretty good idea what the fields of Asphodel looked like. The black grass had been trampled by eons of dead feet. A warm, moist wind blew like the breath of a swarm. Black trees, Grover told me they were poplars, grew in clumps here and there. The cavern ceiling was so high above us it might have been a bank of storm clouds, except for the stalactites. That was the worst way of pronunciating anything. Pronouncing anything. Something is wrong with my brain. Ignore. Which glowed faint grey and looked wickedly pointed. I tried not to imagine they'd fall on us at any moment, but dotted around the fields were several that had fallen and impaled themselves in the black grass. I guess the dead didn't have to worry about little hazards like being speared by stalactites the size of a booster rocket. I'm not exactly a beauty guru, so my style of makeup isn't really going to help. Rained, but not that well. And then when it rained a few weeks ago, if you watch my channel, you would know when it rained. You, if you watched the previous videos, like the first, no, the first two chapters, I did it on Twitch. It was a different thing. Anyway, so yeah, and right now it is so hot, and suddenly out of nowhere there is the thunder going around, and we actually have a puja downstairs, Sundarkand puja, which we do for Hanumanji. And there is a story there, but I will not get deeper into why we do Sundarkand and what is the meaning of Sundarkand, because we have to finish it off. But anyway, since I got into the topic of this storm clouds, it suddenly burst in my head. It is thundering out there when the entire day it was so hot and so sunny and so bright. So out of nowhere, there are clouds of thunder, and the puja that is going to happen, it is literally in the society garden. So there is no coverage for people to sit. So yeah, I have no idea why, but I had to get it out somewhere. Annabeth, Grover, and I tried to blend into the crowd, keeping an eye out for security ghouls. I couldn't help looking for familiar faces among the spirits of Asphodel, but the dead are hard to look at. Their faces shimmer. They all look slightly angry or confused. They will come up to you and speak, but their voices sound like chatter, like bats twittering. Once they realize you can't understand them, they frown and move away. The dead aren't scary, they are just sad. This speak this one line this two lines, the dead aren't scary, they're just sad. It speaks volumes. So much volume it's is in there. To me, it just the line speaks volumes to me personally. I don't know about you. We crept along, following the line of new arrivals that snaked from the main gates towards a black tented pavilion with a banner that read, "Judgments for Elysium and Eternal Damnation. Welcome, newly deceased." Out the back of the tent came two as in the number. To the left, spirits flanked by security ghouls were marched down a rocky path towards the fields of punishment which glowed and smoked in the distance. A vast, cracked wasteland with rivers of lava and minefields and miles of barbed wire separating the different torture areas. Even from far away, I could see people being chased by hellhounds, burned at the stake, forced to run naked through cactus patches or listen to opera music. I could just make out a tiny hill with the ant-sized figure of Sisyphus struggling to move his boulder to the top. And I saw worse tortures too, things I don't want to describe. The line coming from the right side of the Judgment Pavilion was much better. This one led down towards a small valley surrounded by walls, a gated community which seemed to be the only happy part of the underworld. Beyond the security gate were neighborhoods of beautiful houses from which every time period in history, Roman villas and medieval castles and Victorian mansions. Silver and gold flowers bloomed on the lawns. The grass rippled in rainbow colors. I could hear laughter and smell barbecue cooking. Elysium. In the middle of that valley was a glittering blue lake with three small islands, like a vacation resort in the Bahamas. The Isles of Blessed, for people who had chosen to be reborn 3 times and 3 times achieved Elysium. Immediately I knew that's where I wanted to go when I died. That's that's what it's all about, Annabeth said, like she was reading my thoughts. That's the place for heroes. But I thought of how few people there were in Elysium, how tiny it was compared to Esperal or even punishment. So few people did good in their lives. It was depressing. If we left the Judgment Pavilion and moved deeper into Asphodel, it got darker. The colors faded from our clothes. The crowds of chattering spirits began to thin. After a few miles of walking, we began to hear a familiar screech in the distance. Looming on the horizon was a palace of glittering black obsidian. Above the parapets swirled three dark bat-like creatures, the Furies. I got the feeling they were waiting for us. I suppose it's too late to turn back, Grover said wistfully. We'll be okay. I tried to sound confident. Maybe we should search some of other places first, Grover suggested, like Elysium, for instance. Grover reads my thoughts. Come on, goat boy. Annabeth grabbed his arm. Grover yelped. His trainer sprouted wings and his legs shot forward, pulling him away from Annabeth. He landed flat on his back in the grass. Grover, stop messing around, Annabeth chided. But I didn't, he yelped again. His shoes were flapping like crazy now. They levitated off the ground and started dragging him away from us. Maya! He yelled, but the magic word seemed to have no effect. Maya! Already! 911! Help! I got over being stunned and and made a grab for Grover's hand, but too late. He was picking up speed, skidding downhill like a bobsled. We ran after him. Annabeth shouted, Untie the shoes! It was a smart idea, but I guess it's not so easy when your shoes are pulling you along feet first at full speed. Grover tried to sit up, but he couldn't get close to the laces. We kept after him, trying to keep him in sight as he sipped between the legs of spirits who chattered at him in annoyance. I was I was sure Grover was going to barrel straight through the gates of Hades' palace, but his shoes veered sharply to the right and dragged him in the opposite direction. The slope got steeper. Grover picked up speed. Annabeth and I had to sprint to keep up. The cavern walls narrowed on either side, and I realized we'd entered some kind of side tunnel. No black grass or trees now, just rock underfoot and dim light of stalactites above. Grover, I yelled. My voice echoed. Hold on to something. What? He yelled back. He was grabbing at Cravel, but there was nothing big enough to slow him down. The tunnel got darker and colder. The hairs on my arms bristled. It smelled evil down here. It made me think of things I shouldn't even know about. Blood spilled on an ancient stone altar, the foul breath of a murderer. Then I saw what was ahead of us, and I stopped dead in my tracks. The tunnel widened into a huge dark cavern and in the middle of the chasm was the size of a city block. Grover was sliding straight towards the edge. "Come on, Percy," Annabeth yelled, tugging at my wrist. "But that's, I know, the place you described in your dream, but Grover's going to fall if we don't catch him." She was right, of course. Grover's predicament got me moving again. He was yelling, clawing at the ground, but the winged shoes kept dragging him towards the pit, and it didn't look like we could possibly get to him in time. What saved him here were his hooves. The flying sneakers had always been a loose fit on him, and finally Grover hit a big rock and the left shoe came flying off. It sped into the darkness, down into the chasm. The right shoe kept tugging him along, but not as fast. Grover was able to slow himself down by grabbing onto the big rock and using it like an anchor. He was 3 meters from the edge of the pit when we caught him, hauled him back to the slope. The other winged shoe tugged itself off, circled around us angrily, and kicked our heads in protest before flying off into the chasm to join its twin. Wow. Imagine getting hit on the head by a flying shoe. We all collapsed, exhausted on the obsidian gravel. My limbs felt like lead. Even my backpack seemed heavier, as if somebody had filled it with rocks. Grover was scratched up pretty bad. His hands were bleeding, his eyes had gone slit pupilled, goat style, the way they did whenever he was terrified. "I don't know how. I didn't," he panted. "Wait, listen," I said. I heard something, a deep whisper in the darkness. Another few seconds, and Annabeth said, "Percy, this place." "Shh." I stood. The sound was getting louder, a muttering, evil voice from far, far below us, coming from the pit. Grover sat up. "What? What's that noise?" "Tartarus. The entrance to Tartarus." Annabeth heard it too now. I could see it in her eyes. I uncapped Anaclosmus. The bronze sword expanded, gleaming in the darkness. The evil voice seemed to flatter just for a moment before resuming its chant. I could almost make out words now, ancient, ancient words, older, even than Greek, as if magic. I said, "We have to get out of here." Annabeth said. Together we dragged Grover to his hooves and started back up the tunnel. My legs wouldn't move fast enough. My backpack weighed me down. The voice got louder and angrier behind us, and we broke into a run. Not a moment too soon. A cold blast of wind pulled at our backs as if the entire pit were inhaling. For a terrifying moment, I lost ground, my feet slipping in the gravel. If we'd been any closer to the edge, we would have been sucked in. We kept struggling forward and finally reached the top of the tunnel, where the cavern widened out into the fields of asphodel. The wind died. A wail of outrage echoed from deep in the tunnel. Something was not happy we'd got away. "What was that?" Grover panted. Even when we'd collapsed in the relative safety of a black poplar grove. "One of Hades' pets." Annabeth and I looked at each other. I could tell she was nursing an idea, probably the same one she'd got during the taxi ride to LA, but she was too scared to share it. That was enough to terrify me. I am not pleased with the sound of getting dragged to Tartarus. Even if I'm being tortured, Tartarus is not a place for me. I kept my sword, put the pen back in my pocket. "Let's keep going." I looked at Grover. Can you walk? He swallowed. Yeah, sure. I never liked those shoes anyway. He tried to sound brave about it, but he was trembling as badly as Annabeth and I were. Whatever was in that pit was nobody's pet. It was unspeakably old and powerful. Even Echidna hadn't given me that feeling. I was almost relieved to turn my back on that tunnel and head towards the Palace of Hades. Almost. The, fu- the Furies circled the parapets, high in the gloom. The outer walls of the fortress glittered black, and the 2-story tall bronze gates stood wide open. Up close, I saw that the engravings on the gates were scenes of death. Some were from modern times: an atomic bomb exploding over a city, a trench filled with gas mask wearing soldiers, a line of African famine victims waiting with empty bowls, but all of them looked as if they'd been etched into bronze thousands of years ago. I wondered if I was looking at the prophecies that had come true. Inside the courtyard was the strangest garden I'd ever seen. Multicolored mushrooms, poisonous shrubs, and weird luminous plants grew without sunlight. Precious jewels made up for the lack of flowers, piles of rubies as big as my fists, clumps of raw diamonds, standing here and there like frozen party guests, were Medusa's garden statues, petrified children, satyrs, and centaurs, all smiling grotesquely. I would still like to see this place. Sounds like good wallpaper for my phone. In the center of garden was an or, orchard of pomegranate trees, their orange blooms neon bright in the dark. The garden of Persephone, Annabeth said. Keep walking. I understood why she wanted to move on. The tart smell of those pomegranates were almost overwhelming. I had a sense of desire to eat them, but then I remembered the story of Persephone. One bite of underworld food, and we would never be able to leave. I pulled Grover away to keep him from picking a big juicy one. We walked up the steps of palace, between black columns, through a black marble portico, and into the house of Hades. The entry hall had a polished bronze floor, which seemed to boil in the reflected torchlight. There were no ceilings, just the cavern roof far above. I guess they never had to worry about rain down here. Every side doorway was guarded by a skeleton in military gear. Some wore Greek armor, some British redcoat uniforms, some camouflage with tattered American flags on the shoulders. They carried spears or muskets or M16s. None of them bothered us, but their hollow eye sockets followed us as we walked down the hall towards the big set of doors at the opposite end. 2 US Marine skeletons guarded the doors. They grinned down at us. Rocket rocket propelled grenade launchers held across their chests. You know, Grover mumbled. I bet Hades doesn't have trouble with door-to-door salesmen. My backpack weighed a ton now. I couldn't figure out why. I wanted to open it, check to see if I had somehow picked up a stray bowling ball. But this wasn't the time. Well, guys, I said, I suppose we should knock. A hot wind blew down the corridor and the doors swung open. The guests step aside. I guess that means antres. The room inside looked just like in my dream, except this time the throne of Hades was occupied. He was the third god I'd met, but the first who really struck me as godlike. He was at least 3 meters tall, for one thing, and dressed in black silk robes and a crown of braided gold. His skin was albino white, his hair shoulder length and jet black. Ooh, I can picture it already. He wasn't bulked up like Ares, but he radiated power. He lounged on his throne of fused human bones, looking lithe, graceful, and dangerous as a panther. Immediately, I felt like he should be giving orders. He knew more than I did. He should be my master. Then I told myself to snap out of it. Ares' aura was affecting me, just as Ares' had. The Lord of Dead resembled pictures I had seen of Adolf Hitler or Napoleon, or the terrorist leaders who direct suicide bombers. Ares had the same intense eyes, the same kind of mesmerizing, evil charisma. You are brave to come here, son of Poseidon, he said in an oily voice. After what you have done to me, very brave indeed. Or perhaps you are simply very foolish. Numbness crept into my joint, tempting me to lie down and just take a little nap at Hades' feet. Curl up here and sleep forever. I fought the feeling and stepped forward. I knew what I had to say. Lord and uncle, I came with two requests. My hands are clamped from holding the book up. Hades raised an eyebrow. When he sat forward in his throne, shadowy faces appeared in the folds of his black robes, faces of torment, as if the garment was stitched of trapped souls from fields of punishment, trying to get out. The ADHD part of me wondered, off task, whether the rest of his clothes were made the same way. You know what? Yes, that would also be my first thought, to check out the rest of his outfit and see if everything matches. It is not a good idea to do to a god, but yes. Also, just between us, if I were to visit the Indian gods that I have been told about, I have been taught about my entire life, and I had to meet them, the first thing I'm going to do is ask them why do they not wear the same way that I've seen their portraits. Like in their portraits, they literally have a specific style of wearing clothes and jewelries and everything. What if they don't have that? What if they are not wearing that type of clothes that I have seen in pictures and portraits and in temples? The only thing is, me and the gods, we are going to have some heated discussions. Not heated angry, but heated confused, if you know what I mean. This has been a very tiring day. What horrible things would you have to do in your life to get woven into Hades' underwear? Percy, my man, what kind of thoughts are you having? Only two requests, Harry said. Arrogant child, as if you have not already taken enough. Speak, then. It amuses me not to strike you dead yet. I swallowed. This was going about as well as I'd feared. I glanced at the empty, smaller throne next to Hades. It was shaped like a black flower, gilded with gold. I wished Queen Persephone were here. I recalled something in the midst about how she could calm her husband's moods. But it was summer. Of course, Persephone would be above in the world of light with her mother, the goddess of agriculture, Demeter. Her visits not her visit, not the tilt of the earth, created the seasons. How about we say that both things do? Annabeth cleared her throat. Her finger prodded me in the back. Lord Hades, I said, look, sir, there can't be a war among gods. It would be bad, really bad, Grover added helpfully. Return Zeus's master bowl to me. Please, sir, let me carry it to Olympus. Hades' eyes grew dangerously bright. You dare keep up this pretense after what you have done? I glanced back at my friends. They looked as confused as I was. Um, Uncle, I said, you keep saying after what I've done. What exactly have I done? The throne room shook with tremor as strong they probably felt it upstairs in Los Angeles. Debris fell from cavern ceiling. Doors burst open like along the walls, and skeletal warriors marched in, hundreds of them, from every time period and nation in Western civilization. They lined the perimeter of the room, blocking the exits. Hades bellowed, do you think I want war, Godling? I wanted to say, well, these guys don't look like peace activists, but I thought that may be a dangerous answer. Yes, Percy, that is a dangerous answer. You are the Lord of the Dead, I said carefully. A war would expand your kingdom, right? A typical thing for my brothers to say. Do you think I need more subjects? Do you not see the sprawl of Asphodel? Well, have you any idea how much my kingdom has swollen in this past century alone? How many subdivisions I've had to open my opened mouth. I opened my mouth, but Hades was I opened my mouth to respond, but Hades was on a roll now. More security codes, traffic problems at the Judgment Pavilion, double overtime for the staff. I used to be a rich god, Percy Jackson. I control all the precious metals under the earth. But my expenses, Karen wants a pay raise. Percy, now was not the good time. Why would you do that? Karen wants a pay raise. I blurted, just remembering the fact. As soon as I said it, I wished I could sew up my mouth. Don't get me started on Caron. He's been impossible ever since he discovered Italian suits. Problems everywhere, and I've got to handle all of them personally. The commute time alone from the palace to the gates is enough to drive me insane, and the dead just keep arriving. No, Godling, I need no help. getting subjects. I did not ask for this war, but you took Zeus's masterful. Lies! More rumbling. Hades rose from his throne, towering to the height of football goalpost. Your father may fool Zeus, boy, but I'm not so stupid. I see his plan. His plan? You were the thief on winter solstice, he said. Your father thought to keep you his little secret. He directed you into the throne room in Olympus. You took the master bolt and my helmet. Had I not seen my fury to discover you at the Yancy Academy, Poseidon might have succeeded in hiding his scheme to start a war. But now you had been forced into the open. You will be exposed as Poseidon's thief, and I will have my helmet back. But Athena spoke. I could tell her mind was going a million miles an hour. Lord Hades, your helmet of darkness is missing too. Do not play innocent with me, girl. You and that satyr have been helping this hero, coming here to threaten me in Poseidon's name. No doubt, to bring me an ultimatum. Does Poseidon think I can be blackmailed into supporting him? This is exactly why I don't speak in family matters. Even if it even if it is my family, try to stay away from it. I do not want this type of accusations held over my head. No, I said. Poseidon did. I didn't. I have said nothing of the helmet's disappearance because I had no illusions that anyone in Olympus would offer me the slightest justice, the slightest help I can ill afford for word to get out of my most powerful weapon of fear is missing. So I searched for you myself, and when it was clear you were coming to me to deliver your threat, I did not try to stop you. You didn't try to stop us, but return my helmet now, or I will stop death. Hades threatened. That is my counter proposal. I will open the earth and have the dead pour back into the world. I will make your lands a nightmare. And you, Percy Jackson, your skeleton will lead my army out of Hades. The skeletal soldiers all took one step forward, making their weapons ready. At that point, I probably should have been terrified. The strange thing was, I felt offended. Nothing gets me angrier than being accused of something I didn't do. Same! I have been accused of doing things I haven't done, and it makes me pissed. Like, seriously, either get your facts right or stop accusing me for things I've not done. I've had a lot of experience with that. You're as bad as Zeus, I said. You think I stole from you? That's why you sent the Furies after me? Of course. And the other monsters? Hades curled his lips. I had nothing to do with them. I wanted no quick death for you. I wanted you brought before me alive so you might face every torture in the fields of punishment. Why do you think I let you enter my kingdom so easily? Easily! Return my property. But I don't have your helmet. I came for the Master Bolt, which you already possess. You came here with it, little fool, thinking you could threaten me. But I didn't. Open your pack then. A horrible feeling struck me, the weight in my backpack, like a bowling ball. It couldn't be. I slung it off my shoulder and unzipped it. Inside was 60-centimeter long metal cylinder, spiked on both ends, humming with energy. Percy, Annabeth said. How? I don't understand. I don't know. You heroes are always the same. Your pride makes you foolish, thinking you could bring such a weapon before me. I couldn't. I did not ask for Zeus's masterbolt, but since it is here, you will yield it to me. I'm sure it will make an excellent bargaining tool. And now, my helmet. Where is it? I was speechless. I had no helmet. I had no idea how the master bolt got had got into my backpack. I wanted to think Hades was pulling some kind of trick. Hades was the bad guy. But suddenly the world turned sideways. I realized I'd been played by Zeus, Poseidon, and Hades had been set at each other's throats by someone else. The Master Bolt had been in the backpack, and I'd got the backpack from Lord Hades. Wait, this is all a mistake, I said. A mistake? Hades roared. The skeletons aimed their weapons. From high above, there was a fluttering of leather wings, and the three Furies swooped down to perch on the back of their master's throne. The one with Mrs. Todd's face grinned at me eagerly, that flicked her whip. There is no mistake, Hades said. I know why you have come. I know you I know the real reason you brought the bolt. You came to bargain. For her. Hades lost a ball of gold fire from his palm. It exploded on the steps in front of me. There was my mother, frozen in a shower of gold, just as she was at the moment when Minotaur began to squeeze her to death. I couldn't speak. I reached out to touch her, but the light was as hot as bonfire. Yes, Hades said with satisfaction. I took her. I knew, Percy Jackson, that you would come to bargain with me eventually. Return my helmet, and perhaps I will let her go. She's not dead, not yet. But if you displease me, that will change. You know, I washed my hair today, so I have to air dry it the behind the back of my hair. But you know what? No. This is very annoying. I'm going to tie my hair. Seriously, that this feels so much better. I could finally concentrate. I thought about the pearls in my pocket. Maybe they could get me out of this. If I could just get my mom free. Ah, the pearls, Hades said, and my blood froze. Yes, my brother and his little tricks. Bring them forth, Percy Jackson. My hands moved against my will and brought out the pearls. Only three! What a shame. You do realize each only protects a single person. Try to take your mother, then, little godling. And which of your friends will you leave behind to spend eternity with me? Go on, choose, or give me the backpack and accept your terms. Sorry, accept my terms. We were tricked, I told them. Set up. I looked at Annabeth and Grover. Their faces were grim. Yes, but why? And the voice in the pit? Annabeth asked. I don't know yet, but I intend to ask, I said. Decide, boy, Hades yelled. Percy, Grover put his hand on my shoulder. You can't give him the bolt. I know that. Leave him here. Use a third pearl on your mom. No, I'm a satyr, Grover said. We don't have souls like humans do. He can torture me until I die, but he won't get me forever. I'll just be reincarnated as a flower or something. It's the best way. Annabeth said. No, Annabeth drew her bronze knife. You two go on, Grover. Grover, you have to protect Percy. You have to get your searcher's license. Start your quest for Pan. Get his mom out of here. I'll cover you. I plan to go down fighting. No way. I'm staying behind, Grover said. Think again, goat boy, Annabeth said. Stop it, both of you. I felt like my heart was being ripped in two. They had both been with me through so much. I remembered Grover dive bombing Medusa in the Statue of Garden and Annabeth saving us from Cerberus. We'd survived Hephaestus's Waterland ride, the St. Louis Arch, the Lotus Casino. I had spent thousands of miles worried that I'd be betrayed by a friend, but these friends would never do that. They had done nothing but save me over and over, and now they wanted to sacrifice their lives for my mom. I know what to do. Take these. I handed them each a bird. But Percy, I turned and faced my mother. I desperately wanted to sacrifice myself and use the last pearl on her, but I knew what she would say. She would never allow it. I had to get the bolt back to Olympus and tell Zeus the truth. I had to stop the war. She would only forgive me if I saved her instead. I thought about the prophecy made at Half Blood Hill. What seemed like a million years ago. You will fail to save what matters the most in the end. I'm sorry. I'll be back. I'll find a way. The smug look on Hades' face faded. He said, Godling, I'll find your helmet, uncle. I told him, I'll return it. Remember about Karen's paydays. Do not defy me, and it wouldn't hurt to play with Cerberus once in a while. He likes red rubber balls. Percy Jackson, you will not. Now, guys, we smashed the pearls at our feet. For a scary moment, nothing happened. Hades yelled, Destroy them! The army of skeletons rushed forward, swords out, guns clicking to full automatic. Furies lunged their whips, bursting into flames. Just as the skeletons opened fire, the pearl exploded at my feet with a burst of green light and a gust of fresh sea wind. I was encased in a milky white sphere which was starting to float off the ground. Annabeth and Drover were right behind me. Spears and bullets sparked harmlessly off the pearl bubbles as we floated up. Ares yelled with such rage the entire fortress shook, and I knew it was not going to be a peaceful night in LA. Look up, we're going to crash. Soon enough, we were racing right towards the stalactites, which I figured would pop our bubbles and screw us. How do you control these things? I don't think you do, I shouted back. We screamed as the bubbles slammed into the ceiling and darkness. Were we dead? No. I could still feel the racing sensation. We were going up right through solid rock as easily as an air bubble in the water. That was the power of pearls, I realized. What belongs to the sea will always return to the sea. For a few moments, I couldn't see anything outside the smooth walls of my sphere. Then my pearl broke through on ocean floor. The two other milky spheres, Annabeth and Grover, kept pace with me as we soared upward through the water. And kablam! We exploded on the surface in the middle of Los Angeles Bay, knocking a surfer off his board with an indignant "Dude!" I grabbed Grover and hauled him over to Boy. I caught Annabeth and dragged her over too. A curious shark was circling us, a great white about 3 meters long. I said, Beat it. The shark turned and raced away. The surfer screamed something about bad mushrooms and paddled away from us as fast as he could. Somehow I knew the time it was early morning, June 21, the day of summer solstice. In the distance, Los Angeles was on fire, plumes of smoke rising from neighborhoods all over the city. There had been an earthquake, all right, and it was Hades' fault. He was probably sending an army of the dead after me right now. But at the moment, the underworld wasn't my biggest problem. I had to get to shore. I had to get Zeus's thunderbolt back to Olympus. Most of all, I had to have a serious conversation with the god who tricked me. That was chapter 19. It was long and it's been like 50 minutes, and we still have one more chapter to go. I cannot let this chapter go. Otherwise, I will have to do three chapters tomorrow, which is not a lot of time, and I would be stuck with you guys for 2 hours, which none of us want. So let's get started faster. Chapter 20. Battle my jerk relative. Anyway, I have to get going before 6, so yes, we have to finish this faster. A Coast Guard boat picked us up, but they were too busy to keep us for long or to wonder how three kids in street clothes had got into the middle of the bay. There was a disaster to mop up. Their radios were jammed with distress calls. They dropped us off at Santa Monica Pier with towels around our shoulders and water bottles that said, "I'm a junior Coast Guard," and sped off to save more people. Our clothes were soaking wet, even mine. When the Coast Guard boat had appeared, I silently prayed they wouldn't pick me out of the water and find me perfectly dry, which might have raised some eyebrows. So I'd willed myself to get soaked. Sure enough, my usual waterproof magic had abandoned me. I was also barefoot because I'd given my shoes to Grover. Better the Coast Guard wonder which one of us was barefoot than wonder which one of us had hooves. Sorry, this is not the time to laugh. After reaching dry land, we stumbled down the beach, watching the city burn against a beautiful sunrise. That is not how I would describe things, but yes. I felt as if I had just come back from the dead, which I had. My backpack was heavy with Zeus's master bolt. My heart was even heavier than seeing my mother. I don't believe it. We went all that way. It was a trick, a strategy worthy of Athena. Hey, she warned. You get it, don't you? She dropped her eyes, her anger fading. Yeah, I get it. Well, I don't, Grover complained. Would somebody, Percy? Annabeth said, "I'm sorry about your mother. I'm so sorry." I pretended not to hear her. If I talked about my mother, I was going to start crying like a little kid. The prophecy was right. You shall go west and face the god who has turned. But it wasn't Hades. Hades didn't want war between the big three. Someone else pulled off the theft. Someone stole Zeus's master bolt and Hades' helmet and framed me because I'm Poseidon's kid. Poseidon will get blamed by both sides. By sundown today, there will be a three-way war, and I will have caused it. Grover shook his head, mystified. But who would be that sneaky? Who would want war that bad? Gee, let me think. I stopped in my tracks, looking down the beach. There he was, waiting for us in his black leather duster and his sunglasses and aluminium baseball bat propped on his shoulder. His motorcycle rumbled beside him, its headlight turning the sand red. "Hey kid, you were supposed to die," Aries said, seeming genuinely pleased to see me. "You tricked me," I said. "You stole the helmet and the master bolt." Aries grinned. "Well, now, I didn't steal them personally. Gods taking each other's symbol of power, that's a big no no. But you're not the only hero in the world who can run errands. Who did you use? Clarice? She was there at the winter solstice." The idea seemed to amuse him. "Doesn't matter. The point is, kid, you're impeding the war effort. See, you've got to die in Underworld. Then old seaweed will be mad at Hades for killing you. Corpse breath will have Zeus's master bolt, so Zeus will be mad at him, and Hades is still looking for his. From his pocket, he took out a ski cap, the kind bank robbers wear, and placed it between the handlebars of his bike. Immediately, the cap transformed into an elaborate bronze war helmet. The helmet of darkness, Grover gasped. Exactly, Ares said. Now, where was I? Oh, yeah. Hades will be mad at both Zeus and Poseidon because he doesn't know who took this. Pretty soon, we got a nice little three-way slugfest going. But they're your family, Annabeth protested. Ares shrugged. Best kind of war. Always the bloodiest. Nothing like watching your relatives fight. I always say, Kalesh, Kalesh, we do all thrive when witnessing a good house Kalesh. You gave me the backpack in Denver. The master bolt was in there the whole time? Yes and no, Eddie said. It's probably too complicated for your little mortal brain to follow, but the backpack is the master bolt's sheath, just morphed a bit. The bolt is connected to it, sort of like that sword you got, kid. It always returns to your pocket, right? I wasn't sure how Ares knew about that, but I guess a god of war had to make it his business to know about weapons. Anyway, Ares continued, I tinkered with the magic of a bit, so the bolt would only return to the sheath once you reached the underworld. You get close to Hades, bingo, you got mail. If you died along the way, no loss. I still had the weapon. But why not just keep the master bolt for yourself? I said. Why send it to Hades? Ares got a twitch in his jaw. For a moment, it was almost as if he were listening to another voice deep inside his head. Why didn't I? Yeah, with that kind of firepower, he held the trance for 1 second, 2 seconds. I exchanged nervous looks with Annabeth. Eris's face cleared. I didn't want the trouble. Better to have you caught red-handed holding that thing. You're lying. Sending the bolt to the underworld wasn't your idea, was it? Of course it was. Smoke drifted from his sunglasses as if they were about to catch fire. You didn't order the theft, I guessed. Someone else sent a hero to steal the two items. Then, when Zeus sent you to hunt him down, you caught the thief, but you didn't turn him over to Zeus. Something convinced you to let him go. You kept the items until another hero would come along and complete the delivery. That thing in the pit is ordering you around. I'm the god of war. I take orders from no one. I don't have dreams. That is a sad thing to say, Ares. Everyone should have dreams. I hesitated. Who said anything about dreams? Ares looked agitated, but he tried to cover it with a smirk. Let's get back to the problem at hand, kid. You're alive. I can't have you taking the bowl to Olympus. You just might get those hard headed idiots to listen to you. So I've got to kill you. Nothing personal. He snapped his fingers. The sand exploded at his feet, and out charged a wild boar. Oh, that does not sound good. If you don't know, read an Aphrodite story where a wild boar kills her lover. Like she was genuinely in love with that guy, and a wild boar kills him. It was a very sad tale, even larger and ugliest than one whose head hung above the door of cabin 7 at Camp Half Blood. The beast pawed the sand, glaring at me with beady eyes as it lowered its razor sharp tusks and waited for the command to kill. I stepped into the surf. Fight me yourself, Ares. He laughed, But I heard a little edge to his laughter, an uneasiness. You've only got one talent, kid, running away. You ran away from Chimera. You ran from the underworld. You don't have what it takes. Scared? In your adolescent dreams. But his sunglasses were starting to melt from the heat of his eyes. No direct involvement. Sorry, kid, you're not my level. Annabeth said, Percy, run! The giant boar charged. But I was done running from the monsters, or Hades, or Ares, or anyone. As the boar rushed me, I uncapped my pen and sidestepped. Riptide appeared in my hands. I slashed upwards. The boar's severed right tusk fell at my feet, while the disoriented animal charged into the sea. Wave! I shouted. Immediately a wave surged up from nowhere and engulfed the boar, wrapping around it like a blanket. The bear squealed once in terror, then it was gone, swallowed by the sea. I turned back to Ares. Are you going to fight me now? Or are you going to hide behind another pet pig? Percy, I don't think it's a good idea to do that to a god. Ares' face was purple with rage. Watch it, kid. I could turn you into a cockroach or a tapeworm. Yeah, I'm sure that'd save you from getting your godly hide whipped, wouldn't it? This boy is going to be the death of everyone, and I love it. Why is he so sassy? Flames danced along the top of his glass. Oh man, you really asking to be smashed into a grease spot. If If I lose, turn me into anything you want. Take the bolt. If I win, the helmet and the bolt are mine, and you have to go away. Very sneered. He swung the baseball bat off his shoulder. How would you like to get smashed? Classic or modern? I showed him my sword. That's cool, the dead boy. Classic it is. The baseball bat changed into a huge, two-handed sword. The hilt was a large silver skull with a ruby in its mouth. Percy, don't do this. He's a god, Annabeth said. He's a coward, I told her. She swallowed. Wear these at least, for luck. She took off a necklace with 5 years' worth of camp beads and the ring from her father and tied it around my neck. Reconciliation, she said. Athena and Poseidon, together. My face felt a little warm, but I managed to smile. Thanks. I think my face is a little warm. It's a lot warm. And take this, Grover said. He handed me a flattened tin can that he'd probably been saving in his pocket for 1,000 miles. The satyr says, stand with you. Oh my god, Grover, that is so sweet. Grover, I don't know what to say. Neither do I. That is so sweet of him. He patted me on the shoulder. I stuck the tin can in the back pocket. You're done saying goodbye? Ares came forward towards me, his black leather duster trailing behind him, his sword glinting like fire in the sunrise. I've been fighting for eternity, kid. My strength is unlimited, and I cannot die. What have you got? A smaller ego, I thought, but I said nothing. I kept my feet in the surf, backing into water up to my ankles. I thought about I thought back to what Annabeth had said at Denver Diner so long ago. Ares has strength. That's all he has. Even strength has to bow to wisdom sometimes. He gleamed downward at my head, but I wasn't there. My body fought for me. Thought its thought for me. The water seemed to push me into air, and I catapulted over him, slashing as I came down. But Ares was just as quick. He twisted and the strike that should have caught him directly in the spine was deflected off the end of his sword hilt. Not bad, not bad, he grinned. He slashed again, and I was forced to jump into dry land. I tried to sidestep to get back to the water, but Ares seemed to know what I wanted. He outmaneuvered me, pressing so hard that I had to put all my concentration on not getting sliced into pieces. I kept backing away from the surf. I couldn't find any openings to attack. His swords had a reach a meter long than Anaclosmus. Get in close, Luke had told me once, back in our sword class. When you've got the shorter blade, get in close. I stepped inside with a thrust, but Ares was waiting for that. He knocked my blade out of my hands and kicked me in the chest. I went airborne, 15, maybe 20 meters. I should have broken my back if I hadn't crashed into the soft sand of a dune. Percy, cops! Annabeth yelled. Was seeing double. My chest felt like I had just been hit with a battering ram, but I managed to get to my feet. I couldn't look away from Ares for fear he'd slice me in half, but out of the corner of my eye, I saw red lights flashing on the shoreline boulevard. Car doors were slamming. There, officer. See? Somebody yelled. A gruff cop voice. Looks like that kid on TV. What the heck? That guy's armed. Call for backup, another cop said. Right when you need cops. I rolled at one side as Ares' blade slashed the sand. I ran for my sword, scooped it up, and launched a swipe at Ares' face, only to find my blade deflected again. Ares seemed to know exactly what I was going to do the moment before I did it. I stepped back towards Sir, forcing him to follow. Admit it, kid. You've got no hope. I'm just toying with you. My senses were working overtime. I now understood what Annabeth said about ADHD keeping you alive in battle. I was wide awake, noticing every little detail. I could see when Ares was tensing. I could tell which way he would strike. At the same time, I was aware of Annabeth and Trover 10 meters to my left. I saw a second cop car pulling up, siren wailing. Spectators, people who had been wandering the streets because of the earthquake, were starting to gather. Among the crowd, I thought I saw a few who were walking with strange, shouting gait of disguised satyrs. They were shimmering forms of spirits, too, as if the dead had risen from Hades to watch the battle. I heard the flap of leathery wings circling somewhere above. More sirens. I stepped further into water, but Ares was fast. The tip of blade ripped my sleeve and grazed my forearm. The police voice on the megaphone said, "Drop the guns. Set them on the ground. Now." Guns! I looked at Ares' weapon, and it seemed to be flickering. Sometimes it looked like shotgun, sometimes two-handed sword. I didn't know what the humans were seeing in my hand, but I was pretty sure it wouldn't make them like me. Ares turned to glare at our spectators, which gave me a moment or to breathe. There were 5 police cars now, and a line of officers crouching behind them, pistols trained on us. "This is a private matter. Be gone," Ares bellowed. Technically, yeah, it's a family matter. He swept his hand, and a wall of red flame rolled across the patrol cars. The police barely had time to dive for cover before their vehicles exploded. The crowd behind them scattered, screaming. Ares roared with laughter. "Now, little hero, let's add you to the barbecue." He slashed. I deflected his blade. I got close enough to strike, tried to fake him out with a feint, but my blow was knocked aside. The waves were hitting me in the back now. Ares was up to his thighs, wading in after me. I felt the rhythm of the sea, the waves growing larger as the tide rolled in. Suddenly I had an idea. Little waves, I thought, and the water behind me seemed to recede. I was holding back the tide by force of will, but tension was building, like carbonation behind a cork. 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 Ares came towards me, grinning confidently. I lowered my blade, as if I were too exhausted to go on. Wait for it, I told the sea. The pressure now was almost lifting me off my feet. Ares raised his sword. I released the tide and jumped, rocketing straight over Ares on a wave. A 2-meter wall of water smashed him full in the face, leaving him cursing and sputtering with a mouthful of seaweed. I landed behind him with a splash and fainted towards his head, as I'd done before. He turned in time to raise a sword, but this time he was disoriented. He didn't anticipate the trick. I changed direction, lunged to the side, and stabbed Riptide straight down into water, sending the point through the god's heel. The roar that followed made Hades' earthquake look like a minor event. The very sea was blasted back from Ares, leaving a wet circle of sand 15 meters wide. I remember the scene from the poster of the show. It was a good poster. Ichor, the golden blood of gods, flowed flowed from a gash in the war god's boot. The expression on his face was beyond hatred. It was pain, shock, complete disbelief that he'd been wounded. He limped towards me, muttering ancient Greek curses. Something stopped him. It was as if a cloud covered the sun, but worse. Light faded, sound and color drained away. A cold, heavy presence passed over the beach, slowing time, dropping the temperature to freeze, and making me feel like life was hopeless, fighting was useless. The darkness lifted. Ares looked stunned. Police cars were burning behind us. The crowd of spectators had fled. Annabeth and Grover stood on the beach in shock, watching the water flood back around Ares' feet, his glowing golden ichor dissipating in the tide. Ares lowered his sword. "You have made an enemy, godling," he told me. "You have sealed your fate. Every time you raise your blade in battle, every time you hope your success, you will feel my curse. Beware, Perseus Jackson, beware." His body began to glow. "Percy, don't watch." Come on. Cursing a child. I don't like children much, but seriously, why would you do this? I turned away as the god Ares revealed his true immortal form. I somehow knew that if I looked, I would disintegrate into ashes. The light died. I looked back. Ares was gone. The tide rolled out to reveal Hades' bronze helmet of darkness. I picked it up and walked towards my friends. But before I got there, I heard the flapping of leathery wings. 3 evil-looking grandmothers with lace hats and fairy whips drifted down from the sky and landed in front of me. The middle Fury, the one who had been Mrs. Tod's, stepped forward. Her fangs were bared, but for once she didn't look threatening. She looked more disappointed, as if she'd been planning to have me for supper, but had decided I might give her indigestion. "We saw the whole thing," she hissed. "So it truly was not you." I tossed her the helmet, which she caught in surprise. "Return that to Lord Hades. Tell him the truth. Tell him to call off the war." She hesitated, that, then ran a forked tongue over her green leathery lips. "Live well, Percy Jackson. Become a true hero. Because if you do not, If you ever become If you ever come into my clutches again, she cackled, savoring the idea. Then she and her sisters rose on their bats' wings, fluttered into the smoke-filled sky and disappeared. I joined Grover and Annabeth, who were staring at me in amazement. "Percy, that was so incredibly terrifying," said Annabeth. "Cool," Grover corrected. I didn't feel terrified. I certainly didn't feel cool. I was tired and sore and completely drained of energy. Did you guys feel that, whatever it was? They both nodded uneasily. Must have been the Furies overhead, Grover said. But I wasn't so sure. Something had stopped Ares from killing me, and whatever could do that was a lot stronger than the Furies. I looked at Annabeth, and an understanding passed between us. I knew now what was in that bed, what had spoken from the entrance of Tartarus. I reclaimed my backpack from Grover and looked inside. The master bolt was still there, such a small thing to almost cause World War III. "We have to get back to New York by tonight," I said. "That's impossible unless we fly," I agreed. She stared at me. "Fly like in an airplane, which you were warned never to do, lest Zeus strike you out of the sky, and carrying a weapon that has more destructive power than a nuclear bomb." "Yeah," I said. "Pretty much exactly like that. Come on." And we are almost to the end. 21 chapter tomorrow, not today, because I have things to prepare for. And this was a very two very exciting chapters. One was quite dull. It was all about Hades and his kingdom and everything, but it was still very emotionally wrenching for once. uh, Chapter 19. And oh, then we had chapter 20, action packed chapter 20, and we got kind of a hint who that was. And it was, for me, it is quite obvious who that is, but I'm not going to reveal it until the book does, because I don't want to be wrong in any way. So, yeah, thank you so much for watching. Do not forget to like, share, and subscribe. I will be live tomorrow for the last part of the book, and we could celebrate. So, bye everyone. See you tomorrow.